Hello, welcome to IBC Podcast, the podcast where we discuss news that comes from around the world and bring our own opinions into the conversation, as well as other people's opinions that you may never heard of. Today I am Mohammed Ahmed and I am joined by Lewis, and we have two stories for you today. The first story is the Wuhan lab leak theory of how COVID originally spread from China. Recent evidence suggests that this theory isn't as far-fetched as many people initially thought it was. And our second story is Donald Trump teasing supporters about a prospect of another run for the US presidency. Now back to our first story. There was actually a scientist who went on to another news channel to give an interview saying that lab leaks are fairly common. So I think this theory might not be that, I sort of agree, it's not as far-fetched. What do you think, Lewis?
Well, coming from my view is very, very different. I think they're common, but not, when you say the word common, I wouldn't class them as common. Because when you say stuff's common, it means it happens a lot and quite regular, which, to my understanding, is not that common. For example, you have better chance of winning the lottery than experiencing a lab leak. They're not common, but they can happen. And we don't deny that they can't happen, but they can. Yeah. But they're not massively common. It's not going to happen every single day or every single year that's going to be a lab leak, because we just haven't seen this. We haven't seen a pandemic like this on a scale. Now, my views on the Wuhan lab leak theory is quite strong. I do think it, in a way, has a probability. The main reason I say that was because before, back in 2019, they discovered coronavirus and they were testing to see what it does. So it made me think, if they're testing it, they've got to have something to do with it, because it wouldn't have just then, just appeared out of nowhere if they already knew it existed. And
it is a virus, so it would seem a bit shady that they wouldn't have the necessary safety precautions to study it.
With the regards to another reason, actually, that backs up this point is you could tell with China at the start of that pandemic that even over here we didn't know about it because China was keeping it top secret. Which, if you think about it, if they didn't know about this, they would want help from other countries. But yeah, again, it's China. But they would want help. Any other country would have wanted help from another country, so they would have told, or they would have at least, I think it's the law or world law, to inform the World Health Organization if there's an outbreak of anything at all. Anything.
Yeah.
But they weren't straight to the point. It was only that one doctor. So imagine if that one doctor never actually announced COVID being existing. Yeah. We would be in a completely different place.
Yeah. The point you said about it can happen, it has one little case study I think of is, I think back in sometime in the 1900s, there was a scientist who was examining an Ebola sample and actually accidentally injected himself with the Ebola. So that's sort of one case study that could sort of back up what you said.
I just want to pop in with a bit of statistics. Ebola weren't around until maybe the mid 20th century, so it wouldn't be at the start, it would be a bit later.
Probably like
1960s. Yeah. Actually, Ebola was quite recent. In the last, I'm going to say 1970s, I think Ebola started to pick up. 1970s. Yeah. I'll check that date.
Yeah. But the thing you said about China, I agree, is China. They hold a lot of information away from their own people. Who knows what? Yeah, so, who knows how much information they're keeping away from the rest of the world, including COVID.
And if you just go have a look at this virology building, or their disease control, it's guarded.
Yeah, so could literally just be...
We don't guard the CDC. They've got to be hiding something. In my opinion, they've got to.
Yeah, and when I said it's not as far-fetched, I don't mean I believe it. I just mean it's not that ludicrous of a theory, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not like a conspiracy theory that's just completely stupid nowadays, like the flat Earth. It's more...
It's something that can actually be proved with evidence, sort of.
It's got a lot more backing, I think, in my opinion. But yeah, again, these stuff happens, but there's always theories are going around. It's good to have theories. It's always good to have a theory about something, because if we didn't have a theory about something, we would never take it as a precaution. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. We wouldn't, criticise anything. We just believe everything we see and all that, and we just go, oh, that's just the way the world is, really.
There is a little theory we could adapt to that. I know it's going into a bit scientific, but in 2002 to 2003, they experienced SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome.
Yep.
That was an infection from the same family as COVID. So, for example, cowpox and smallpox are related. Plague, all the strands of plague could be bubonic, septicemic, pneumonic, all related, same family. So, for example, if you get rid of one, if you're protected against one, you're protected against the other. So, for example, if you're protected against SARS, you're protected against COVID. But what I found funny about SARS is in 2003, they cut funding. Fair enough. It went away, but still, cutting funding. But then they tested on it. And my theory was that then that SARS in a laboratory there, because it started in China, mutated into what we now know as COVID.
I mean, it's not the worst theory in the world.
No, but that's my opinion, that SARS mutated into COVID-19.
Yeah.
But,
okay. Any other thoughts?
Well, with the regards to the Wuhan lab leak, people are going to be skeptical about it, but you would find actually going around, lots of people do believe that there was a Wuhan lab leak. It's just one of them, like you said. It's one that's more believable. Like you can question the word conspiracy theory with this one, because it's been proven in some cases that it has been a lab leak. But like you said, with when you use the example of an Ebola, that's a lot harder, because back in 1976, for example, medical care was not at the same standards of cleanliness, for example, we have now. So you would expect it, even though it's 1970, it's not that far back, you would expect it more in the 1970s than you would nowadays.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Do you think there would be do you think there'll be a change in this? Like, if the virus was originated from like the UK or the US, do you think this theory would still be just as thought about, if that makes sense, than in China?
Yes, 100% do. I do think that. Would I though say that it would be much of a theory if it's in the UK? Probably not.
Yeah, because we in like the UK and the US, I mean, we're not dictatorship. We don't we don't have as much censorship as China does, obviously. So apart from things like Area 51 and that, there's not much in like Western countries like that would really make up theories about if COVID had originated from those countries.
So yeah, for example, if it was in the UK and it did start from here, and the government did say that, which they're more likely to say in this country, the world would be annoyed. People would be annoyed, don't get me wrong. But then again, it won't be a theory then anymore if it was proven. And it's more likely to be proven if it happened in the UK than if it happened in China. But yet again, we do have Secret Service, and we do have to sign secret documents whenever you see stuff like this. So it could be a possibility that it would be the same. But I feel like you would have more likely of a chance that you would find out more if it was in the UK than if it was in China, for example, because they're a very secret country. It was quite well played. I'm going to relate it to the Spanish flu, 1918. Loads of people related to that because that was the last pandemic. But the reason they called it Spanish flu was because the first people to report it were the Spanish. Because they were a dictatorship, they weren't in the war. Because remember, 1918, technically, they were still in war at the time. But what you needed to know from a war perspective or political perspective, it's been proven now that it originated in Kansas City in the US. But the reason it weren't reported was because of that you don't want to tell the other side. By the way, we have a super strong army, but also, by the way, half our army are sick with the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
Because you would look weak and you would just get invaded and you wouldn't be able to handle it. So they had to look strong and not report it. If you just go and say you've got half your army missing or ill due to something, the other country will just attack. But if you didn't tell them, they'll still think you're really strong. Kind of like how the Soviets played it out with the missiles during the Cold War. They played out that they had loads when we now actually know that they kind of lied a lot.
Yeah.
But secrecy was important, and right now China's basically doing the US of this story. They don't want to tell people because they would look weak. But in the case of coming from a Western country, we wouldn't be against them looking weak. We won't just invade China, for example. It's not like that. It's just political now. It's not war strategy.
Powerful than it was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, it can happen. It's a relevant theory. On the other hand, it is driven a little bit by racism, I'd say. So with that, I guess we'll move on to our set
I just
stuff.
want to add a quick bit here.
Would you have it?
It's probably not racism, in a way. It's more the fact that they're a really secret country. And it's...
Yeah, so like a stereotype more than racism.
Yeah, stereotype would be a better word. So it's a very secret country, and also to add on to the fact is a lot of viruses and disease has originated from China.
Yeah.
So people would speculate and guess a lot more from an eastern country. But just thought I'd add that.
Yeah. Okay. With that, we go on to our second story. Donald Trump teasing his supporters about the possibility of him running again for the US presidency. I'll be honest, I have to say, the only president who's actually served 2 terms that haven't been consecutive is Grover Cleveland back in the 1890s. So this is very unlikely, I'd say.
Yeah.
Considering what Biden's done as well.
It's only happened once. But the percentage of it happening, so loads of presidents have lost an election and was like, I'm going to do it again. It's all to be expected.
Yeah.
You would find a lot of presidents do it if they haven't had a second term. They're always like, we'll be back again. We'll never concede. That's what Trump's famous words were.
Yeah.
But the likelihood of it happening, because remember, 4 years, you have 4 years till you could run again. Till you could have a chance at getting into power. By 4 years, no one really wants... When you're... Right, I'll explain something. Before presidency is quite bad. When presidency is good. But then post-presidency, the benefits kind of carry on, almost. You get a lot of money. You get the Secret Service. And you get intel into what's happening. You know, with relations. So some presidents... For example, Barack Obama asked George W. Bush to help with, some negotiations, I think, in North Korea. But they would help. You're post-president, but you're still there to aid the current president. But the benefits of it...
So experience.
He can literally golf all day now. And still earn a lot of money. And also, to back up that, Trump's a big brand. Well, before his presidency, he was a big brand. In the States, but I don't think personally there's higher odds than other presidents, but me personally I think he won't run again. All presidents say in the first year or so, but when it comes to 4 years it's just quite a long time and they just won't bother.
Eventually I'd say he's gonna back off and he's just not gonna bother really.
Yeah.
Also, your point about he was a big brand, I think that sort of decreased after his presidency because a lot of companies, a lot of companies and brands that like work with him have stopped working with him because of stuff he's done during his presidency.
Yeah, it's a face. It's his public face now. His image in the public has changed. Of their perception, you've got the before presidency. Yes, loads of people liked him because he was a big estate billionaire, or millionaire.
Yeah.
Just a good entrepreneur. Like, he was a big brand. It's kind of like, who could we compare this to? Let's say we had the founders of McDonald's, or, for example, Elon Musk. People will like him. People like Elon Musk, for example. Meaning they would vote for him. But from them now seeing how he's run a country, they have had second thoughts, and a lot of Trump supporters have literally hated some of his things and have not become the second-term Trump supporters. But there always are some who are just devoted, but you always get that in anything. You always have some people who are just devoted to it. The reason he got a lot of votes, so he's probably had majority of them from just being well known, to the other side of it, which would have been just Republicans, because some people vote for the president, but you would find quite a lot of people vote for the party. So because he's part of the Republican Party, people voted for that specific party and rather not him, which is not a really good way to go down. You shouldn't really vote for a party, you should vote for the person who's in power. But
you're not really, it's sort of similar to the UK, you're not actually voting for a president, you're voting for a governor of your state.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're also voting for the mayor of your county.
Yeah.
So the mayor of the county just happens to have the mayor and the governor just happen to be part of a political party that happened to be run by Donald Trump.
And what went bad with Donald Trump at the end? It was, if you were to look in the news, if you're following the news before his campaigns or during his campaigns, they were having a lot of elections for the Congress. For example, seats in the elections, so local areas like what we have here in Britain, regions or areas select a MP and they have a seat in Parliament. It's the same thing, it's constituencies. I have a feeling it's states in America, I'm not sure, it might be regions. But what he suffered with at the end of his term was he lost a lot of seats. The Republican Party lost a lot of seats in the Congress. And another bit that also aided that was, the Republican Party did not like Trump. You would find that a lot. The Republican Party did not actually like Trump at all. To the point that at the end, a lot of them would vote against him whenever Trump goes to Congress and says, can I do this? Because remember, he can't just make up decisions like that. He has to go to Congress. Congress has to vote. It's fair. It's democratic. But what he found out is because he had less seats, that means he's going to have less votes. And then if he's got a majority on the Democrats, you can see the Republican Party can't actually win anything. Because if all the Democrats had seats, but they had the majority on the Democrats. So right now it's majority Democrat. Because it was I think it was a swung Congress. And it goes, so when that happens, it goes to the vice president. With that though, because they had the majority Democratic and then the minority Republican, because all the Democrats always vote with whatever the Democrats say and all the Republicans usually all the time vote with what the Republicans say, that's just the way it goes. Whenever a decision Trump made wanted to be voted on, he lost near the end, because this happened near the end of his presidency. So when people start, in a broader view, when people start seeing that he's not doing the stuff he had promised, that people hate that and people do lose interest. So it's just the way politics is run, and you have to play by the ways politics run. Remember, it's for the people, it's not for himself or whatever his party decides is for the people, is for the best idea for the people.
Yeah. I think I think more richer people maybe went, oh, this guy's a billionaire, he's probably going to be a hot prospect in as president. And then after he had a terrible, well, arguably terrible reign as a president, I think it's a bit too. I think he's ruined his reputation to the point where it's almost impossible to get elected in the next election. And yeah, basically.
Wasn't there financial trouble during COVID? There was.
I mean, every country was having that.
There was a depression in America during COVID. Now, the way he would have lost businessmen would probably be through that. Of course, depressions aren't good for businesses; they're really bad.
Which had a big impact on his chances of winning.
Depressions are kind of inevitable, but it's the way you bounce back from the depression. Now, in my opinion, Trump done really well there. I thought, you've actually done something that's actually pretty good. You've bounced back really well from a depression. But it's his other aspects, like you had got a depression for a specific reason. Do you see what I mean? So it's kind of, it's good the situation's now fixed, but you have to work out how you got into that situation so you don't repeat it. Therefore, those who don't know history, repeat it.
Yeah. With the thing he said about presidents, they're meant to be there for the people, I think not just Donald Trump, but some other presidents in the past as well have just focused more on business and money rather than the people. And I feel like that was a big problem for people like Trump and other unsuccessful presidents before him, that they didn't care much about the people, they just wanted to make more money than they already had, if they hadn't.
Another reason why Trump lost a load of supporters, the main reason was January the 6th, Capitol storming. Trump needs to...
What was he thinking?
Yeah, he lost a lot of supporters. Loads of Trump supporters were like, no more. If he's done that, that's like inciting insurrection. He literally almost got charged for that, but they let him off. Welcome to America.
Also, he got impeached twice.
Yeah, he's the only US
president. Like, no other president has been impeached twice.
But the pure fact that it's just something about it. He doesn't realise that words mean a lot in politics. Your speeches mean a lot. If you say something that's really out of context, like he did on January 6th, stuff happens. Like his speech now, in my opinion, I don't feel like he was meant to say that in the way that is, but it was the way he said it. He didn't mean to say it in the way like, go storm the Capitol.
He meant it as an exaggeration.
Yeah.
The people took it literally.
So he said that, he never said we'll go storm it, he went we'll go cheer on the people counting the votes, for example. But his way of saying it just sounded like they should go and storm the Capitol. So he needs to work on his speeches, in my opinion. His way of addressing the nation that completely let that president down. It's his way that he was so big on Twitter that he didn't want to leave it. And in my opinion, a political leader having a Twitter to address stuff is no. They should have never had. And he should... So, presidents can have social media, but they have to go under the name POTUS, President of the United States. But they're secret. They're only stuff that's just... Let's say they go to a car.
It becomes a promotion, like account. Really,
let's say they go to a car fair or a fair like that, or go to visit a state, and they take photos, with this like raising money charity campaign. Their photos are allowed, but tweeting out about political issues is no. You do not want to do that.
Yeah, and giving out military commands and all that via Twitter. That just doesn't make people take him seriously.
Yeah.
He just doesn't seem like a professional. And also, with the bit Bernie said about whenever he says stuff out of context. Also, whenever he says things that are controversial, he mostly just denies them, which really shows that he is either really forgetful, which could come with his age, or that he's just he's just a big liar, and so you can't trust him, even if he's been caught red-handed on cameras. So yeah.
It's just
Any last thoughts?
It's just the way things go. You can't really help it. But in my opinion, overall, he probably won't run again. But the odds are more higher than other presidents. Don't get me. There's a little bit of a percentage chance that he would run again. But in my opinion, going by history, no.
Nah. Okay then, well that brings the end of this episode. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and to all of you watching, from myself, Lewis, and everyone here at the IBC News, we wish you all a very good evening. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.